Hello, I'm Don Nystrom. The program today is about the upcoming election, which I think we all know is November the 8th. And it's coming up pretty soon, so we thought that we could provide a little help to you if you'd like to have some information on what you need to know, what you need to do in order to make your visit to the polls efficient and smooth, right? So I have Trent Miner in the studio. He is the county clerk, and he actually is in charge of all the Wood County voting districts. Jessica Circle is the city clerk, replaced Deb Hall, who took off on us, retired. And so we'd like to start maybe by giving you a little bit of information about a site on the web that I think you would find very, very interesting in case you don't get to watch the end of this program, which will be very informational.
Absolutely.
But if you'd like to check out the site called My Vote Wisconsin, and Jessica can tell you what you might find on what you will find on that site.
Correct. So on My Vote, you can register to vote. You may request your absentee ballot. You can view a sample ballot to see who is on your ballot for this election. You can check your polling place, who your elected officials are. You can see your voting history, not how you voted, but in which elections you have voted for. It's a very, very useful tool, and it is an immense help to the clerk world.
And that would maybe avoid some interactions that you would have in person, because you're going to be really busy.
Correct.
And you are busy already.
We are busy already, and many of our requests for absentee ballots are coming through the My Vote system. It's very easy for a voter to go in, look up their name, they put in their name and their birth date, and they can request their absentee ballot. That same day, we'll print it out, same business day, and we'll get that ballot in the mail to them. So it's very efficient.
And you can actually register.
You may register to vote if your driver's license is current with the DMV. If your driver's license is not current with the DMV, there is an option on My Vote to go to the DMV website, update your information there, and then go back to My Vote to complete the registration process. It is very simple.
I believe that I did that one year when my wife and I were out of town, and we voted absentee for the first time.
Sure.
And it wasn't that difficult. Not everybody has computers and high-speed internet, so if you're out in Siegel, you may...
Yeah, it might be a little more bigger problem.
Slow, yeah. But if you know somebody that could help you, a friendly neighbor, a relative, you can certainly do it that way. All right, so just remember, My Vote Wisconsin. Just go and Google it, and it'll pop up. You know, really quick and easy and simple, and we highly recommend that. So the question is, what is on the ballot besides the ones that we obviously know about?
Yeah, I mean, the big things on the ballot, of course, this year are our governor's race, U.S. Senator race. We have a state Senate race, I believe, up in here in Marshfield. There's a couple of them. And then we have all of our assembly districts up for election this go around. In addition, we have some county people up for election. Our sheriff, our coroner, and our clerk of courts are all up for election. Those are unopposed, so those people will more than likely get reelected to office. So, but that pretty much covers the ballot, with the exception of the referendum that we'll talk about in a few seconds.
Yeah, let's talk about the referendum.
Let's talk about
I
that.
didn't know there was one until last night when I was prepping for the show, and you can explain it.
So the county board has decided that they would like a question on the ballot. It actually came from a resident in the town of Grand Rapids. It was a request of his. He went before the county board committee, that's kind of the judicial and legislative committee that talks about these things, stated his case, and they said, yeah, this would be a good idea. How do I explain it? It's how to kind of sort of bypass the legislative process and get laws changed through a vote of the people. So you could, what the referendum is asking is if you're in favor of such a process where they could petition the form of government or through the state, and then it would just go right to a vote, and then that vote would change the law instead of going through the legislative process, like going through the Senate and the Assembly, and then getting signed by the governor. Good and bad for both. I'm not here to tell you which way you should vote or how you should vote, but that's kind of what it's like. There are 13 or 14 other states out there that have this type of process in place. Probably the most common one is California. You hear about those propositions.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
So And that's the type of face that the clerk isn't going to do. That, oh yes, so I'm not going to give you an opinion on it, but that's probably the most common one that we have out there is
Yeah.
California.
You said Wood County approved the referendum, so I assume other counties did
Actually,
or
we're
didn't?
the only county in the state that has that particular referendum on it. It is an advisory referendum
Correct.
only. It doesn't have any effective law after its passage. It's just, hey, what do you think? Type of election or type of referendum question.
Yeah. As far as I know, there's no particular advocacy group that's pushing it. It's just, if you think that we'd like to have a more direct impact,
Correct.
say yes.
Right.
Otherwise, you're going to trust the people you elect. Okay. So that's what's on the ballot. Jessica, maybe you could tell us who is eligible to vote in an election.
Sure. To be eligible to vote, you must be a U.S. citizen. You should be 18 years of age by election day, and you should not be serving a probation or a felony sentence, and you should reside at your current address for 28 days leading up to the election to be eligible to vote in your municipality.
Okay. College students,
College students have a couple of options. They can vote if they are a Marshfield resident permanently. They can vote absentee ballot for Marshfield, or if they're living elsewhere in the state of Wisconsin, they are also eligible to register to vote in the community where they're going to college. They can only vote in one place,
they should.
but they do have both options. So it's up to them if they would like to register in their college town and vote there, or if they would like to register at home, be registered at home and absentee vote.
Okay.
We talk about should only, and we say it tongue in cheek, but trust me when I tell you that you do it, you will be caught. There's no question. You will be caught, you will be found, and you will be prosecuted.
And you must be alive.
You must be alive. We check the obituaries
and that's-
every day.
Yeah.
That's
We
why
do.
I knew you do. That's why I asked the question, because I know Deb, your predecessor,
Yes.
did go through the obituaries.
Not only the obituaries every day, but also just the funeral home websites, because not everyone publishes an obituary anymore, but they might have something online on the funeral homes. And then the state does check for us as well, and they'll give us a buffer of this person's death was registered, and it looks like you haven't removed them. Follow up and take care of this. So.
If, well, I mean, there's a lot of ifs, ands, or buts, but people should be pretty cautious because, like Trent says, very, very probable that you would get caught.
You will be caught and you
that's
will be prosecuted.
Definitely a no-no. All right, now, there is often confusion on the absentee ballot, so one of you start with that, and we'll probably have some follow-up questions.
Absentee ballots have been around in the state forever. Okay, so not forever. It's become a hot topic after 2020 when they became a lot more popular. Before that, just people didn't necessarily know their options. But anyone in the state of Wisconsin is eligible to vote by absentee ballot. You do not have to have a reason other than you would like to vote absentee. The request has to be made in writing to the clerk, so it can be done on the MyVote website we've discussed. It can be an email to the clerk's office. It can be a handwritten note signed by the voter to the clerk's office, or a paper application that can be mailed to us as well. We process those applications daily. Absentees are mailed out the same business day we receive them, except for the weekend, so we'll get those out Monday morning. The ballot must be completed by the voter. The voter must sign the certificate envelope verifying that they've completed their own ballot. They should have a witness. They must have a witness sign saying, to the best of my knowledge, this person completed their ballot, and the witness fills in their complete address on that envelope as well.
Okay.
Very critical that those 3 lines are filled out on that absentee envelope. Without those, we must reject the absentee. Right now, we are still getting a few ballots that come in incomplete, and we are mailing those back to the voter. They should have time to get the ballot back to them and back to us before Election Day. But as Election Day gets closer,
Right.
we will not have the flexibility of time.
So-
So voters really need to take caution that they complete that absentee envelope 100% accurately, or their ballot will be rejected and their vote will not count.
Okay, one of the questions that comes up frequently that Trent and I have talked about is if you change your mind, you found out something really bad about one of the people you were going to support and you want to change your mind, and you've already sent in an absentee ballot, what happens, Trent?
You can request to have a new ballot sent to you. You can spoil it as of this moment. You are able to spoil that ballot and request a new one and have go through the option of revoting it and then sending that back in. One thing that I will add on to Jessica, the closer we get to the election, you really need to make a decision. You're either going to mail it in or you're going to take it to the polls on election day. The idea of drop boxes is gone. That is no longer an option for any municipality. So make a decision, drop it off in the clerk's office to the clerk, but understand that only the voter can drop their ballot off at the clerk's office. So if you want to take the lovely and gracious Mrs. Nystrom's ballot to Jessica, that's not an option. The lovely and gracious Mrs. Nystrom must go to see Jessica herself and deliver her ballot. So just keep that in mind.
There are some exceptions to meet ADA compliance, but we have very specific questions. So if you come in and your ballot that you're handing me says Mary Smith, I'm going to say, are you Mary Smith? And when you say no, I have very specific questions that I must ask you to understand. Why are you returning Mary's ballot?
Now, just to back up briefly, there is a way to vote car side at the polls, and we can talk about that a little bit, but can they do car side in front of City Hall?
So in-person absentee voting may not start until October 25th. That is the first day we can do in-person absentee voting. We do offer curbside voting at City Hall during in-person voting hours if the staff permits. We advise if someone is interested in that to call and make an appointment with us so that we can make sure we have the staff available, as two of us have to go out to that vehicle.
And how
to
many
offer
people
that.
are in your office? 2?
We have a staff of 4.
Whoa.
Though not all are full-time.
Yeah, okay.
Extra hours around the election time, but again, we have other tasks to complete as well, and we do our best to accommodate. We are offering many, many hours for in-person absentee voting.
So
we
that-
hope people can get
That
out.
should be the exception. The perfect way to do it would be by mail, the absentee by
We
mail.
have a large amount of people that come in to do in-person absentee voting the 2 weeks leading up to the election. And we'll be offering those hours Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, October 25th through 27th, 7:30 until 4:30. Friday the 28th, 7:30 until noon. The next week, Monday through Thursday, 7:30 until 4:30, open City Hall hours. That Friday, we will be staying open until 6 p.m. to allow in-person absentee voting. And also the Saturday morning before the election, we will be open 8 a.m. until 11
You're going
a.m.
to be busy.
We want to make ourselves available. We want everyone to have the option to get out to vote if
right.
they can't make it on election day.
And that may be the case of a work schedule or being out of town for, a lot of people
Right.
commute to other cities and they
Right.
can't get back.
Right. Important note on the Friday that we're staying open until 6 p.m. You may come in to vote until 6 p.m. If you are a new voter just looking to register, 5 p.m. on Friday is the cutoff for registering to vote. So anyone who would come in between 5 and 6 p.m. but they are not already registered would have to wait until Election Day at the polls.
Same as at the polls, if someone has a disability, say a Parkinson's or some other disability where it's difficult for them to connect the pen to where it should be, it's all right for someone to help them?
We have a few options for that actually. So we do have ADA compliant equipment that the voter can feed their ballot into that machine that would help them mark. It can read to them. It has Braille. It can zoom the screen if they have problems seeing. So that would be an option if they can push those buttons. They can ask someone to assist in completing their ballot, and that assister would sign the back of the ballot, verifying that they assisted that person in completing that ballot.
Would that be at the polling place?
That can be at the polling place, that can be during in-person voting, that can be in your home. If you fell down and broke your both arms tomorrow and you couldn't fill out your ballot and your wife needed to help you, she would sign as your assister. And she would sign on your envelope as well as the assister,
Both places?
both places.
Okay. Well, that's clear, and that's great. I mean, we should give everybody the opportunity to vote, and if they have some reason they can't fill out the form, it can still be done.
Correct.
All right, now let's talk about military rules, because that's a little different in terms of when they have to get the information, when they have to request it, how long it takes if they're overseas. If they're in the National Guard and they get called up tomorrow, I mean, or the day before the election, what happens?
I've never had that come up. I'd have to make a phone call on that one, to be truthful
Right.
with you.
Military voters do have extended deadlines. They can request an absentee ballot later than a regular voter may, up to Election Day. Military voters have the option to have a ballot emailed to them. They do still have to legally mail that ballot back to us. So however they're getting that ballot back in the mail to us, it has to be received before the close of polls on Election Day. Though we can email it, that ballot would then they would print the ballot, complete the ballot, mail it back to us. We remake it at the polling place on Election Day, so it's on the standard form ballot to get that put through the machine.
Let's talk briefly about provisional ballots. That's a term that a lot of people don't understand. So what is a provisional ballot?
So a provisional ballot, you're given the same ballot you would if you were completing your ballot on Election Day, but you either cannot or will not produce your photo ID to the poll workers to verify who you are. So you're issued your ballot, and rather than your ballot going into the machine to be counted, it's put into a blue sealed envelope that you sign and the poll workers sign. It's put into the auxiliary bin and it's closed up until the end of election night, comes back to City Hall in the vault, and then the elector has until 4 p.m. the Friday after the election to come back, provide their ID, and complete their ballot to cure that ballot.
I recall, in the past I worked for the elections, on elections, and there were sometimes a couple would come in and one of them didn't bring their wallet or their purse, so they can't vote because they don't have that ID.
Correct.
Does this apply then to the provision that I don't want to go all the way back to the other end of town and it's traffic or whatever?
If they are already a registered voter, yes, that would be an option for doing the provisional. They do have to come back with their ID, either before the polls close on Election Day or Friday by 4 o'clock.
But they don't have to, they still got to go to the back of the line and...
Correct. They would
up.
still stand in line again and bring that photo ID and present it. Or they come to us after. If they do come to us after election night, we would have our Board of Canvasser meeting and we would have to open that ballot and adjust the total tapes to add their vote to those totals.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about voting places, where you can vote after you know where to vote by looking up it on My Vote Wisconsin.
Sure. So, City of Marshfield, we have 3 polling locations. Oak Avenue Community Center, the old Armory, we have districts 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, and the portion of Marathon County, that is City of Marshfield. At Wildwood Station, we have districts 5, 6, and 7. And at 2nd Street Community Center, the old library, districts 8 and districts 9.
Right. Now, the Oak Street Community Center, known as the Old Armory,
Yes,
is a very large facility,
correct.
and that's the greatest turnout also, because there's so many districts there. How can we help people with walkers and wheelchairs and canes, et cetera?
Right.
Because it's a long way in.
Sure. Specifically at the old Armory, there is a small parking lot just off of Oak between the Armory and the city garage building there, which is smaller and marked for handicap parking. If a voter comes in those back doors behind the tables, it's a shorter distance to walk and they could get into line from there. Or we also have the number posted there that they could call us for curbside voting, or can ask a friend, neighbor, family member to come in and request curbside voting, at which point we could go out and do that task for them.
So word to the wise is don't park where there's handicap parking, because it's going to be needed. Now, once the person accesses their polling table, that's still a long ways up to the machines. So can the spouse, after the person goes and fills out the ballot, can the spouse bring up both ballots?
I think that's a gray area that I'm not too comfortable with, to be honest with you. I think that voter would have to deposit their own ballot, just the way some of the court cases have come down recently, and with the laws the way they are. I'm not.
I can from my experience, and may not be appropriate now, but at the time, I was told that if a poll worker observes the two of them, the one with two ballots, with permission, saying, may I walk my husband's ballot up to the machine, that it was approved, but that may possibly not be the case.
I
now.
would be very hesitant to
So
offer
we
that
won't-
advice. If someone is standing in line and it's been a long time, they can ask us if we can bring a
All right.
chair over so that they can at least
So
sit in a
if-
chair while they're going through line. If curbside is an easier option
No,
for
I'm-
them,
Yeah, I'm talking about once they
once they filled it, I would really,
say no.
I would feel most comfortable if the voter is
It
bringing
is
their
great.
ballot themselves.
Yeah.
That's great.
Okay, so they personally have to hike up to the machine.
Right.
Okay.
Just the same as they personally have to deliver their absentee ballot to
The
us.
best solution then is curbside.
That would be an option. Mail-in absentee voting
Well, we
is.
want to do it right.
Yep.
Okay.
Sure.
Now, will there be observers that, to your knowledge?
We never really know until Election Day if we will have observers. My best guess would be that yes, we will have observers. We had observers in Marshfield for the August partisan primary. I would suspect that will be the case again, but we will have areas designated for observers. They will wear name tags. They will identify themselves with the chief inspector when they check in. And then we do have regulations on the number of observers, and if they're all from one party, if somebody from another party would show up, we would have
Sure.
policies on how to handle that.
Sure. And they are there to observe only, not to visit with their neighbor that comes by, or to, obviously they stand at a distance. All they're doing is to
They are observing. They are not touching any equipment or any materials pertaining to the election. They are
Right.
not taking pictures or videos of electors either.
They do have the right to look at the poll book, everything but the confidential section, but they don't have a right to touch that poll book. If they want to look at the poll book, the chief inspector will determine when it is appropriate time. Certainly not while you have a line of people waiting to vote, but the chief inspector can say, okay, there's a lull, you can go up and look at the book. And if they want a page turned, then those poll workers will turn the page for them. They don't touch anything. They certainly don't electioneer, and the chief inspector would have total control over that situation.
I think sometimes they want to know if someone that they suspect is supporter of their candidate has voted or not, especially on I think on school referendums. That was pretty common at the time. But okay, there may be observers, and it's totally legal. They have to register ahead of time. They have to wear a badge, and they can't get in anybody's way.
Yep.
End of
Yes.
discussion. Politicking, where can they politic? Near the sites. They can be,
Within 100 feet, they may not be within 100 feet of the polling place as far as public property. If there's a home directly across the street from a polling location, less than 100 feet, we cannot control what is on their private property. We can only have control over what is on public property.
okay, can someone walk down the sidewalk with a sandwich board saying, vote for me?
If they are outside of that radius,
So they,
And like I said, it's more common, not necessarily in Marshall, because your polling locations, which they do a fabulous job. I mean, they're set up well. I've been in them during election. Deb and Jess have done a fabulous job with that. But in the more rural areas, especially I can think of in the city of Pittsville, the Town of Wood Town Hall is literally right next door to a private residence and right across the road. You could, you'd spit on the thing. It's that close. Whatever happens on private land, they can have the bells and whistles and lights going all during the election saying support this candidate. And that's perfectly legal. It's just on that public land that it's not legal. So within that 100 feet.
the same would go for vehicles in the parking lot.
That is
So we do not want to see a truck in the parking lot with a great big "Vote for Mary Smith" sign, because that would be electioneering. That vehicle will be removed.
You can be there to get the
You
job
can go
done.
vote, and then you should
Leave.
leave.
And when you're, especially at the Armory, people from the same neighborhood typically vote at the same voting place district. Visiting is not a particularly good idea because there's so much commotion going on. People want to know where to go, where to register, what to do. and you haven't seen your neighbor for a long time, best to do it in the corridors outside, correct?
Correct. I will also remind that the acoustics in the buildings are not always the greatest, so the extra conversation makes it very difficult for the poll workers to hear the voter. So let's keep the conversations out in the hallway, out in the parking lot, not inside of the polling
And
location.
especially with some people still wearing masks with the COVID and communication is difficult. Do you still have the plastic?
We removed
front
the
of-
shields for the August election, more for, again, the sound, the acoustics, especially in the armory. It was very difficult for the poll workers. So we
Okay.
still advise if you're uncomfortable to wear your mask. It is not
Sure.
a requirement, but if you're not comfortable, that's
But
our
the-
best advice.
The advice is please respect other people that have hearing disabilities, like me, and visit outside of the actual voting place, which would be, in the hallway
Yes, please.
where the donuts are.
No more donuts.
There's no donuts.
No more donuts.
Yeah, really?
Really?
Oh,
COVID,
oh, see.
Man.
prepackaged snacks.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Last, two more comments. One is, if somebody wants to take a selfie of themselves in the polling place to prove to their mom, dad, or sister, or friend that they voted, that was a problem a couple of years ago. That you
It's
could
not, yeah, it's not as big of a problem anymore. As long as they're not disruptive, they can't take a picture of their voted ballot, but they can take selfies and that type of thing. It's really a First Amendment type thing. I guess you could even do your ballot, but the problem is you take a picture of it, which is fine, you can't post it. You can't put it out there on social media. That is against the law. And we'll talk about Wisconsin Rapids, the former mayor did do that at one point.
Yeah, I remember.
When he first ran for office, he was excited. Boom, took a picture of his voted ballot with his name all circled in, and oops, and he admitted it. He was the first one to call the Elections Commission and says, I think I made a big goof there. And they said, yeah, you did. Take it down, and that was all there was to it. It was an honest mistake. But yeah, you can take a picture of it, you just can't do anything with that picture, I guess is the easiest way to put it.
but how would you monitor that?
Or take your selfie with the machine without your ballot.
Yep.
Your ballot is not visible, or anyone else's ballot, then you're okay. Don't have other voters in the background, though.
Right.
Well, that's important.
And don't be disruptive, because again, chief inspector will be able to determine you're standing in front of the ballot machine taking a selfie, being goofy or whatever. I got a string of 5 people that want to get that ballot in the machine.
Right.
Yeah, sorry, you're moving on. You're
Right.
moving on. So chief inspectors have total control over that.
You could probably take one on the, walk it in and with your hand on the door.
There's actually some pretty neat things in the election catalogs that Jess and I get in the mail, where they have selfie stations at the polling location, kind of off on the side, where people can
I
say,
voted
I
today."
voted, yeah, the I vote sticker blown up on the whole wall. So that's an option for people if you
I'm
want to
really
spend the money.
excited about my future voter stickers this election. So instead of just I voted stickers, I have ballots for the little kids that actually say future voter. So that's
Oh, how
really
cool is
exciting.
that? Well, yeah.
So.
Well, that's a great idea because frequently parents want to take their kids to show them how the system works, and that's a wonderful, wonderful thing.
Absolutely.
And that would be, I know those little kids like stickers because when I was handing them out, they definitely wanted stickers. That's why they came.
Exactly.
And then they wear it to daycare or school the next day and they get extra treat or something. I'm not sure what, but it is great. It's super. All right, now, that's assuming that everything's working smoothly as we know it will.
Absolutely.
The results are going to be first picked up at the Marshfield polling places and taken down to your office, right?
Slight change
Oh.
since you've worked. We now modem our results directly to the county, so we do not have chance for human error in our reading the numbers over the phone in a noisy polling place. The modem results are then checked as we count the ballots to make sure that we counted the exact number of ballots as are on the tapes.
Really?
We
So
modem that straight to Trent. He'll have it it takes a little while for that process for the totals to accumulate, but you have it by 8:30 probably.
Usually
from us.
countywide, everybody can modem now with the exception of well, there's about 4 municipalities. 2 are hand counts, and there's a couple of municipalities that do not have good coverage for modeming. We usually have most of the county results up no later than 8:45 to 9 o'clock.
Whoa.
We will have everything done and done.
I recall we used to have to load them into cars and take them down there and bring them up to you. And
We're still doing our double checking where we're still counting the number of ballots to make sure the numbers match. We're still bringing everything to Trent the next morning and up to Marathon County the next morning.
But it's after it's been.
But the results have been unofficially submitted until we
Sure.
finish Board of Canvas.
And that's very important, that the results you see online on our website, on the county website, are unofficial until the county gets done canvassing and seeing if there's any
Sure.
errors or mistakes that have to be adjusted.
Right, and
They're unofficial.
occasion 1 or 2.
Sure, absolutely, that happens. That's
Provisional
normal.
voters.
Provisional voters, absolutely.
So the important thing is that that's instead of calling city clerk and saying who's ahead in this and that, to
Go to the Wood County
clerk.
Wood County, Wisconsin clerk
Right.
website. Yes, when you type in Wood County, it seems like they always want to send you to Ohio or West Virginia, where there are Wood counties as well. Make sure you're differentiating Wood County, Wisconsin.
The website will come up, and then you go to this.
Left-hand side, it'll say election results. Click on it, and boom, it'll be
Yeah.
right there, and it'll update.
Automatically, or do you have to refresh?
Refresh it. I think it auto refreshes after 45 seconds, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's how IT has it set up. But I'll be in there loading those results up just as fast as I get them. So don't call Jess, don't call me. Look on the website because you're going to know actually
All you
before
do
we
is
do.
push buttons.
We're pushing buttons. We double check to make sure, okay, we'll look at the results from each reporting unit just to make sure there aren't any anomalies out there. Like one governor candidate got all the votes and the other governor candidate got none. Okay,
be a
we're
problem.
checking for those anomalies. Never has happened, ever has happened, but we double check that. And that's, again, what Canvas is for. A couple days later, we'll sit down, we'll go
Sure.
through, make sure that's what we got.
Now, obviously, people need to account for the fact that in Marshfield, we also have Marathon County. And so if you think, oh boy, this person really is going to take it, but the Marathon County hasn't, how do you connect with, how do people know what the total is? I mean, you have to go to the news media for that?
That may be the best, or know that if you, especially in the city of Marshfield, that you are in 2 different counties. You may have to go to the Marathon County Clerk's website,
Or-
get those. News media will combine those numbers, or when after everything is said and done, after all the counties have canvassed, if it's a statewide office, it'll show up there. It'll show up at the state office, at the Elections Commission. So
Like that would be for assembly and state.
assembly,
senate,
those
governor,
statewide races, right?
Lieutenant governor.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then that's the place to go, is to look on the website at the
co.wood.wi.us, and you'll find everything you want
or
there.
just go to Wood County, Wisconsin website.
Yes,
Google it.
Google it.
That's the easiest.
yes.
All right. Great. Thank you both for coming in, and we look forward to the election. We're going to get her done.
We are.
We always do.
We'd like to ask our viewers if they would set the pace, and when you're in the polling place, it is going to be hectic because you expect 80 to 90%, you told me, of voting, and I don't think it's that high, but we'll see. I'll bet you a nickel that's under 50%.
My
we
prediction
can't bet
is
on our election.
78 to 85% is my prediction.
Okay.
I don't think she's far off. I think it's going to be in that 80-ish, 70 to 80%.
Anyway, the poll workers are going to be very, very busy, and they don't get an extraordinary amount of pay. It's more of a community service with mostly a token salary, and they're really dedicated. It's a very complicated job, as I know, because they got different colored envelopes and different situations come up, and the poll supervisors have to, help out. So be kind, and thank them for the work that they do, because it's a public service, it's a needed service, and they're well trained, but there's so much going on at one time. It's just nice to
Step
say
back
thank
and
you
to you bet.
and leave.
We appreciate our poll workers. It's a full-time job for us to stay current on election laws. So passing that along to our workers who come in 2 to 4 times per year to work an election, that's a lot for any person to take on. So as long as every voter is patient, understand if you're waiting in line, they are doing their best. They just want to make sure we encourage them, take your time to do it correctly so we are accurate.
And the more you prepare to go to vote, the better it will be for everybody. Go to My Vote Wisconsin. Any questions, call either of your offices. But most of what you need to know,
Is on that
you
website.
can change your address, or maybe you could just tick this off again, Jessica.
Sure. You can change your address, you can request your absentee ballot, you can check on your polling location, and any other election-related information for your history would be there. But the big ones right now, if you haven't registered to vote, register now. You don't have to wait until Election Day. That will streamline the process for you. If you're concerned you might not be available Election Day, request your absentee ballot by mail or come into those in-person voting hours we have beginning October 25th.
And that information is on your
That
website.
information is on the city website. That information is also on the My Vote website. That information is posted in the Marshfield News Herald as well.
So there might be some misconfusion if you're visiting, having coffee with your neighbors. Be sure to share this information with them, because as you expect, it will be probably very busy.
Yes.
And the more prepared you are, the quicker the process will go. And you can leave feeling good that you did your job.
Correct.
Thank you both for coming.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it very much.
Thank
I'm
you.
Don Nystrom, signing off. Thank you for watching.